Getting back to the writer and this technique, the whole technique is called the Travis technique, but this part of the Travis technique is the interrogation process, and it's a process of interrogating the character. It's a very highly defined process and technique, but it's something that I've shown a lot of writers how to do. And I have this, like this one workshop I did in Munich, I think. I've done it a couple of places where it's just called Meet Your Characters Before You Write Your Script. And I've had writers come in and say, okay, I've got this story. I say, okay, you know, give me a paragraph, short paragraph on each character. Tell me what the story is, okay? Give me a paragraph on each character, and just a short paragraph. So I go, and we'll take, you know, typical family drama. I got the husband, the wife, a couple of kids, a couple of neighbors, and this is the story, and that's the thing. I say, okay. Now, I've read this, and I know this. There was a group of actors in the room, and they haven't read any of it, right? Or I can give it to them. And then I start interrogating these actors and turn them into those characters. And within minutes, the writer is sitting there in the room with all his characters, talking to each other, engaging with each other. And we did this once in Munich on a full project, and then the writer would say to me, well, I want to see what happens if these two characters have this situation happens. I said, okay, and then I would just work with the two actors and put them into that scene. This is an unwritten scene. And the writer's going, there's my scene. Or there's the idea of a scene. But the idea, now this gets back to the collaboration. If writers could think about, I'm developing this story, what would happen if in the process I met with a few actors, worked with them, allowed them to be these characters for a moment so I could sort of get a sense of them outside of my head but viscerally in front of me, and then let the actors go home and I'll keep working. In other words, meet the characters. One of the greatest untapped resources we have in this business, seriously, which we very rarely use, is the creative imagination of actors. We do a terrible thing. We write a script for a year, 2 years, months. Director comes along, gets an idea. Producer comes along, you know, now everybody's got an idea, and then they start casting. And what we're doing in the casting is we're trying to find those actors, and there are thousands of them, the right actors to fit into the little boxes that we've created, which are called characters. And we find the best actor to fit in that box, and then basically we ask them to play that character, and that's the way it works. What would happen if you brought in some actors long before that? And this is what we'll be doing in this weekend. Bring in actors long before that and say, okay, we're still in the development process. We don't know where, we don't even know quite where this story's gonna go maybe, or how it's gonna, but bring actors in and allow them to use their creative imagination and creative abilities to totally inhabit these characters for a while so you can see what's going to happen. Why not? You know, it's like building a car. BMW does not build just a beautiful car, a fast car, and then put it on the market and sell it. It tests it over and over. Every part of that car is tested and tested and tested, you know, to see that it's going to work right. But we don't test anything. Suddenly, many times, the first time a writer, and I've heard this from some writers, hear their words come out of an actor is when we're shooting the film. And I go, that's ridiculous.
Or in the theater, if the writer got jettisoned before it went into production.
If the writer's lucky enough to be there. Yeah, like many times I did, when I was working with Mark Rydell, and he would ask me, I did this process with a full script, and we'd work for just one day on the script with the characters, and then I'd do a reading at the end of the day, and he'd come and see the reading. And the one writer, who was a very well-known writer, came and sat and watched this. It was in a theater. He just heard a reading of his screenplay, and he went, oh my God. He says, I've never heard my script read before like this. It's always the first reading after it's all cast. He says, but now that I've heard it, he says, now I know what it needs. And now I know where the problems are. So this way of working with actors earlier in the process as part of the development exploratory process is really crucial.
And one of the things we're doing in this weekend is we're getting scenes from 2 different participants in the workshop that will be there, and we're using those to go through this whole process. So we're not just saying, oh, look at this great performance in 12 Years a Slave or in Nebraska or whatever. We're taking this raw script or these scenes, with the writer there. And we're going to be talking first about what goes in and discussing it, but then they're going to see, and all the participants are going to see these principles applied to something that isn't finished and isn't production ready and so on, to see how this can be done and see the transformation of those scenes going through this entire collaborative process, beginning to end. I think that's going to be exciting to me, because I haven't had that experience before of getting to do that with one of my clients and taking it all the way to, let's mold this with a director and by pulling the characters out of an actor.